Now we're going to take a look at Chris Paul, transition, getting a drag screen here from Steven Adams. He's going to set up Jayson Tatum right now. So he's kind of just going to play around with the ball, right? Steven Adams is right here. So he wants to set up Jayson Tatum below this screen. So right here, he's going to skip and kind of push downhill and push Jayson Tatum under the screen. And then he's going to under drag, right? So going under your leg, that's our under drag. Foot switch, and then off this foot switch, he takes an angle off the screen. So as he under drags, foot switch, angle off the screen, and then with his left hand right now, he sees space over here. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna throw the ball into that space and then chase it, right? Once he chases it, he's able to get to that spot before Tatum, and it looks like it's contested, but once he gets here, right, it's a wide open shot, release, right into it. So a great job of setting him up, getting him under the screen with that under drag. The foot switch is going to lead him off the screen. And then the push with his left hand, tossing the ball into space, is get him into space, right, away from his defender. Under drag off that skip, foot switch, and then pushing that ball into space. So for guards, being able to get that defender below the screen and then watching the footwork with the under drag, and then right now the foot switch leading into space, pushing that ball into space for that open shot.
Back out, Paul gets an open look.
So Chris Paul is going to use a dribble release. So from his left hand, he's going to release the ball, which is going to allow his feet to start working. So he releases, right? He's going to get into a lift. On the lift, he lands and he's going to drive, right? Now, right here, Chris kind of went a little early on this, but Steven Adams, instead of keeping and coming to this screen and getting a moving screen, he stops, right? And allows Chris to come off. Two dribble, four step into space. So if we go back, right, Chris Paul sees this space right here, and he's just going to attack two dribbles, right, four steps. So once he's lifted, he uses two dribbles, four steps into a left-right pull-up. 1, 2, two dribbles, four steps, pulling up, right, into space. Again, dribble release. Dribble release. He starts to activate his feet as the ball is still in the air. Then when it hits his hand, he's in a lift, lands. Steven Adams does a great job of not keeping coming and setting a moving screen, but staying put and just letting Chris Paul come off. Two dribbles into that four-step pull-up.
Scrapping, clawing for everything. Oh, pretty touch.
Okay, now as Chris Paul's coming in on the secondary break right here, they're going to set a little screen right here with Dennis Schroeder, and it's going to mix up their coverages a little bit, right? So they kind of think that they should switch, which I think they should switch right here. But what happens is they don't communicate. He thinks he's fighting over the top, right? DiVincenzo is kind of in no man's land right here, and Chris Paul sees it, right? So as he's fighting over right now, right, and then he kind of sees DiVincenzo here, he's going to think that DiVincenzo is going to pick up Chris Paul. What Chris Paul uses, right, for pace to read this situation is he's going to lift, right, off that inside foot, which is going to be his left. He's in the air right now. That's going to give him pace. So right now, DiVincenzo, instead of cutting him off and switching, he's going to kind of stay in no man's land because he's not sure what they're doing guarding-wise. So right here, I think they miscommunicated and they're not talking. He's going to lift, put his eyes here, which is going to put these defenders in a position where they got to go back, and then he's on the side, right, which allows Chris Paul to then get downhill. So DiVincenzo, right, really doesn't do a great job right here. As he's in his lift, right, Chris Paul can throw that ball back, right, to Dennis Schroeder. But he reads it. DiVincenzo goes with Dennis Schroeder, right? His defender is staying top side, which allows him to get downhill. So we really want to full speed. Watch the footwork that he uses, right, and the pace he has. So inside lift, skip, and then just a floater over the top.
Paul elevating and hitting.
Now we're going to take a look at Chris Paul off this ball screen. He's going to go to a spot. Chris Paul's probably one of the best in the game at doing this. He comes off and he gets into what we call a transition fade. And being a smaller guard, he uses it a lot. He comes off, and what he's going to do is he's going to create more space with his feet. So if I pause it right here, instead of squaring this foot, he's going to plant his right foot behind, and that's going to give him more space away from Brook Lopez. So if he was a square, Brook Lopez would block this shot, but he's going to keep the ball on his right. So the space he creates is probably maybe 2 to 3 more feet. And then right now he uses a leg kick into a fade. So he's going to lift, he leg kicks, so you can see his foot there, landing here off that foot. But as he transitions away from the rim, he keeps creating more space. So a lot of coaches I hear, oh, that's a bad shot, bad shot. I think this is one of the best shots in the game. Kobe, Jordan, right, Chris Paul, the ability to work on it, to understand how to create more space with your feet, and then the ability to get balanced with a leg kick, right? So right now, he really uses this really well, right? Pushing downhill. Transition fade away, right? And if you watch, he lands balanced. So even though he's fading away, right, and his feet aren't technically squared, just like everybody says, you should always be squared. I think that's, probably something that's the most talked about. That's the wrong thing to teach. You don't always have to be square. You have to have the ability to sometimes square in the air, create more space, and then balance in the air. All right, and he is one of the best in the game at doing it, whether it's off ball screens, coming into space here, or just like he used against Brook Lopez. And as he comes off, he knows he's doing it right away, and he knows he's going to get this shot off. So I think this is a great shot, right, in the little mid-range.
Paul elevating and hitting.
All right, with a transition fade.
We'll take that. Paul around the light. Open lane.
This is one of the things I like about Chris Paul the most is the IQ that he has and the understanding of the game and the ability to set his defenders up for what they think is coming. All right, so right here, if you were to watch this, it looks like Steven Adams right now is going to set this drag. Right, so as he's coming here, it looks like he's going to set this drag. Chris Paul dribble releases right to left and almost runs a little bit to his left side like he's going to come off. Right? It's just a setup to get downhill into all this unoccupied space. So as he tosses, right, Kobe White is going to try to come over the top. He is shooter in this corner, right? He's going to land in an inverted drop, right? As he lands in that inverted drop, he's loaded, right? And if you watch, Kobe White is going to load later than him, right? Which is going to give Chris the ability to then get downhill. So the timing of loading, right? He's already pushing out of his load, and now Kobe White is getting out of a load on his right, and then he's got to try to cut him off, which is going to be way too late, coming downhill right into that space. So high IQ of Chris Paul, right, using Steven Adams and using a game situation of a drag, pace, push, right, wide open layup. Right, so Chris Paul, one of the highest IQs in the game, understanding the situation, understanding he's got Steven Adams coming down on that drag screen, and then setting up, right, Kobe White with pace and then the ability to push cross and then get downhill into space off his push cross.
But you hit it on the head, I believe, Dan, and you talked about getting in foul trouble, just kind of taking them out of it.
We're going to look at something that Chris Paul uses off ball screens. When this big is zoned up, right, or playing in a drop, Chris Paul does a great job of snaking and then lifting off his inside foot and having pace. When he lifts off his inside foot, as he comes off, right, foot here. If you watch his eyes right now, his eyes are going back, right? So what that's going to do to LaMarcus Aldridge is that's going to hold him for a second. So now he's going to get into a lift, pushing back a little bit, and then he lands on 2. And the LaMarcus Aldridge, hands are down, right? His eyes are still there, and he's able to get right into that shot. So that little lift right there, right, made LaMarcus Aldridge have to push back and not react to Chris Paul going into that push cross. So lift off the left, eyes are right into the gap, right? LaMarcus Aldridge is going to slide down a little bit, land on 2, he's into that shot. So a great way for him to have pace, right? If LaMarcus Aldridge close quick, right, he still has the ability to attack downhill, right? He could lift and throw the lob over the top to Steven Adams. He could lift, and if this guy tagged, he could throw back off that also. So understanding how to have pace, right, within the ball screen, and Chris Paul's one of the greatest at doing it.